Nathan Kalman-Lamb says he's not going back to the United States. The New Brunswick professor was denied entry in January, so he got a visa, but still faced trouble in March.
I was taken to secondary detention. They held me there for 3 hours.
Kalman-Lamb says border agents never told him why. He was eventually let in, but says the experience was intense.
They had my phone for 45 minutes. Now, he claimed it was just going to be a very cursory search.
The U.S. Customs and Border Protection says overall searches of electronic devices like cell phones are up nearly 17% from the previous record set in 2022. Between April and June, almost 15,000 devices were searched.
I just became really upset.
Going to visit her fiancé in Maine, New Brunswicker Angela Degel not only had her bags and phone searched,
they had detained me in handcuffs, had me handcuffed down to a bench, and I was just really trying to ask them what was happening.
U.S. authorities say they search phones for a wide range of material, from child pornography to terrorism to evidence of smuggling. But the spike in searches also coincides with Donald Trump's crackdown on immigration, with high-profile arrests, detentions, and deportations.
The border is not doing anything they've never had the power to do. They have always been able to check phones. What we're seeing is an exercise of discretion that's much stricter than ever before.
She suggests Canadians comply with border officials. In June, the number of Canadians traveling to the U.S. was down almost 30% from last year. Some say it isn't just about politics, but worry about how
A number tells the story. Nearly 15,000 phones and laptops searched by U.S. border agents in just 3 months. That's more than a record. It's a signal. But the real question is, what's behind it and why now? For years, Canadians crossed into the United States with little more than a quick passport check. Weekend shopping trips, family visits, business deliveries, routine, almost casual. But that sense of normal is starting to disappear. Something has shifted at the border, and it's leaving travelers uneasy. Take the case of Nathan Kalman-Lamb, a professor from New Brunswick. In January, he was denied entry. By March, even with the correct visa, he faced another obstacle, pulled into secondary detention, 3 hours waiting, his phone taken, no explanation given. And then, suddenly, he was allowed in. The encounter left him shaken, wondering what exactly had changed. He isn't alone. Another traveler, Angela Degel, shared a far more intense story. Visiting her fiancé in Maine, she was not only searched, but briefly handcuffed to a bench while officers combed through her belongings. Her phone, her bags, even her medication. Nothing felt off limits. And here's the twist. U.S. Customs and Border Protection insists these searches are legal. They've always had the authority. What's changed is the frequency. According to official reports, device inspections are up 17% over previous records, and the criteria for being flagged feels broader than ever. So why the surge now? Why are ordinary Canadians, teachers, students, even engaged couples, facing scrutiny once reserved for high-risk suspects? Some point to the Trump administration's tougher stance on immigration and border security. Others believe it's a direct response to rising threats like drug smuggling and trafficking. But whatever the reason, one thing is clear. Crossing into the U.S. is no longer routine. And Ottawa's response, or lack of it, is beginning to raise serious questions. Because if Canada can't protect its own citizens at the border, who really holds the power here? And in just a moment, we'll uncover how this spike in enforcement is reshaping trade, travel, and even Canada's political standing. When thousands of Canadians avoid crossing the border, the ripple effects show up fast. Hotels that once filled with U.S. visitors are leaving rooms empty. Small towns built on weekend shoppers are reporting quieter streets. Even gas stations and convenience stores near the border are feeling the pinch. It's not just about tourists. Businesses that rely on cross-border shipments are running into delays they never expected. Truck drivers stuck in inspections, deliveries, slowed by extra paperwork. Perishable goods like seafood and fresh produce held long enough to lose value. One missed deadline can mean thousands in lost revenue, not only for companies, but for farmers and exporters who depend on speed. The numbers paint a complicated picture. Officially, travel into the U.S. has risen by a few percentage points. But Canadians are crossing far less than before. In June alone, the number of Canadians entering the U.S. was down nearly 30% compared to the previous year. A contradiction? Not really. It suggests that while total international traffic into the U.S. grew, Canadian travelers are pulling back. The reason may be simple. They no longer feel welcome. This growing hesitation is more than inconvenience. It's political leverage. The Trump administration has made border control a defining theme, presenting tougher searches as necessary for national security. Ottawa, meanwhile, appears caught off guard. The Canadian government issued an updated travel advisory warning citizens to expect scrutiny and reminding them that customs officers have the right to search any electronic device without reason. But warnings alone don't protect citizens. When travelers are detained or humiliated, when businesses face mounting costs, or when trade slows at the checkpoints, people begin asking tougher questions. Who's really setting the terms of this relationship? Is Canada negotiating from a position of strength, or has it simply ceded control of the border to Washington? For many Canadians, the answer is already obvious. Crossing south isn't just about showing your passport anymore. It's about walking into a system that has the power to dig into your private life, seize your belongings, and disrupt your livelihood. And this isn't only about individuals. In the next part, we'll dig into how these stricter rules are reshaping Canada-U.S. relations at the highest levels, and why Ottawa's silence could be the most dangerous move of all. Borders aren't just lines on a map. They're bargaining, chips. And right now, Washington is playing its hand with precision. Under Donald Trump, U.S. border enforcement has become more than a security policy. It's a political weapon. The surge in device searches, detentions, and questioning isn't random. It's part of a deliberate strategy. Show strength, project control, and remind neighbors who sets the rules. From Washington's perspective, it's effective. Advanced searches can uncover evidence of smuggling, fraud, even links to criminal networks. They reinforce the message that national security comes first, no exceptions. And for Trump's administration, that message carries political weight at home. America First isn't just a slogan, it's being enforced, one phone inspection at a time. But across the border, Ottawa seems unprepared. Instead of a coordinated response, Canadians are being handed vague travel advisories. Be patient, know your rights, expect delays. To frustrated travelers and struggling businesses, those words ring hollow. Rights don't protect you when you're already sitting in a secondary inspection room, watching officers scroll through your personal photos or emails. And here's where the silence becomes dangerous. Because every missed shipment, every delayed tourist, every handcuffed Canadian becomes part of a bigger narrative, one where the U.S. calls the shots and Canada struggles to respond. Immigration lawyers are already warning that politics now plays a bigger role than ever at the border. Officers can ask about travel plans, social media activity, even political opinions. Refuse to comply, and you could be denied entry, detained, or have your devices confiscated. Ottawa knows this, yet it hasn't offered citizens a clear strategy to protect themselves. So what does this mean in practice? It means the Canadian government is on the defensive, while Washington sets the pace. It means Canadian sovereignty is being tested, not in Parliament, but at the border crossings where ordinary citizens are left to face the consequences. And most of all, it means trust is eroding, not just in the United States, but in Canada's ability to stand up for its people. Coming up, we'll break down how these border tensions are feeding into wider economic disruptions, from supply chains to trade agreements, and why the damage may already be deeper than most Canadians realize. When a border tightens, it doesn't just slow down travelers, it slows down economies. And right now, Canadian industries are beginning to feel the weight of stricter U.S. enforcement. Truck drivers hauling shipments across the border are spending more time in inspection bays. What used to be a formality is now a drawn-out process. Every extra hour on the road means higher costs, missed delivery windows, and strained contracts. For perishable goods like seafood, fresh produce, or dairy, even a small delay can wipe out profits. Farmers and exporters are watching their margins shrink, not because of competition, but because of checkpoints. Manufacturing is also caught in the drag. Canadian companies shipping auto parts, electronics, or medical supplies rely on precise schedules. A delayed shipment doesn't just slow one truck, it can disrupt an entire assembly line. Missed deadlines lead to penalties. Higher costs pile up. And ultimately, consumers feel it in rising prices. Even small businesses near the border aren't immune. Restaurants that once thrived on American diners are seeing empty tables. Gas stations and convenience stores are reporting steady drops in sales. For border towns, where every customer counts, these losses are already reshaping local economies. And tourism? Families who once drove south for a weekend getaway are rethinking their plans. Students considering U.S. universities are hesitating. Travelers planning to shop, vacation, or visit relatives now weigh a new question. Is the hassle worth it? This slowdown comes at a fragile moment for Canadian trade. With global markets already strained, border disruptions add another layer of uncertainty. Businesses that once counted on predictability now face inspections, seizures, and red tape. In Ottawa, critics say, hasn't offered a safety net, leaving industries to adapt on their own. The message from Washington is simple. Security first, trade second. And Canada, lacking leverage, is left scrambling to keep pace. But this economic pain isn't just about dollars. It's about power. Because every missed delivery and canceled trip is a reminder that the U.S. controls the tempo, and Canada is reacting, not leading. And in the final part, we'll uncover what this all means for the future, how security, sovereignty, and politics collide at the border, and why the outcome could redefine Canada-U.S. relations for years to come. At its core, this border story isn't just about phones or laptops, it's about power, and who has it. For the United States, tighter enforcement has become both a shield and a signal against drugs, smuggling, and illegal crossings, and a signal to the world that America, under Trump's leadership, will not hesitate to exercise authority, even over its closest ally. Advanced device searches, long detentions, probing questions, they're not just security tools, they're reminders of who controls the line between entry and exclusion. For Canada, the picture is less certain. Ottawa's response so far has been muted, limited to advisories urging patience and caution, but patience doesn't erase the humiliation of being handcuffed without explanation. It doesn't cover the costs of delayed shipments, and it doesn't reassure businesses or families who now think twice before crossing. This silence carries risk. Every time a Canadian traveler feels unprotected, every time a business suffers a loss without support, trust in government weakens. Citizens begin to ask, if Ottawa can't stand up for us at the border, where else is it falling short? The deeper issue is sovereignty, because sovereignty isn't tested in speeches or debates. It's tested in lived experiences, at airports, land crossings, and ports of entry. And right now, those tests suggest Canada is reacting instead of leading. So, where does this leave the future of Canada-U.S. relations? With rising drug crises, migration pressures, and political divides, Washington shows no signs of loosening its grip. Canadians will need to adapt, whether by protecting personal data, preparing for inspections, or simply recalibrating expectations. The border that once felt routine now carries uncertainty, and that uncertainty has consequences. Fewer trips, weaker trade, strained trust, a neighborly relationship that feels less equal. Because at the end of the day, the story isn't just about customs officers or device searches. It's about a shift in balance, one where Washington leads decisively and Ottawa struggles to keep up. The question now isn't if Canadians will face stricter scrutiny. It's how far this trend will go, and whether Canada can find a way to protect its citizens without losing ground. So, what's your take? Should Canada push back harder, or is this simply the price of stronger security? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, because this debate is just beginning.